Hello and welcome everybody to today's presentation of our project SmaerEConsultants. We thank you for affording your time to be here today. I am Sean Monagle, the team leader and project manager of SmaerEConsultants. I am joined here today by Ryan Perez and Harley Jackson. Today's presentation will provide you with the information in regards to the project undertaken, the time and cost analysis, risk analysis, software and service justification, team management, the project schedule, and finishing off with a demonstration of the web solution. I will now pass on to Ryan to discuss the project overview.
Thank you, Ryan. Early on in the project's lifespan, the group discussed several key criteria in regards to the time required and the costs required. All the software that we used was to be open source or free in order to save on costs. This policy was maintained throughout the entire project. I offered to host the web solution on my own private server to save on costs, with the calculated costs to be $200. However, at the time of this presentation, the cost only reached approximately $56. Each member of the group would be required to have a stable and reliable internet connection. This was estimated to be a combined cost of $160 and remained at this price. In terms of hours that each member should be putting into this project, the group struggled to reach a number that sounded accurate. It was stated on the course synopsis for CSC 3600 that 84 hours should be spent on private study and 84 hours on project work. With the guidance of Dr. David Lai, it was decided that the estimated time per group would be 170 hours, adding up to a grand total of 510 hours. Of these 170 hours, they will be broken up into smaller categories. They are as follows: 5 hours for research, 20 hours for design, 100 hours for development, 25 hours for testing, 8 hours for implementation, and 12 hours for report writing. Each group member worked on a different total amount of hours and total hours for each section. As part of the planning for the project, we identified a number of potential risks, such as scope creep and loss of necessary services. We prioritized these based on their potential impact to the project. The risks were assessed by determining their probability and potential impact in a worst-case scenario, and rating them based on that criteria. For example, a risk with a critical potential impact and a very high probability of occurring would be graded as a high risk according to the matrix we used. We then determined a number of mitigation control measures for each potential risk in order to bring the risk rating down by either lowering the impact of the risk, the probability of the risk, or both. I will now pass on to Ryan to talk about the services and technologies we have used as part of our project. Each member of our team took on specific roles for the duration of the project based on their existing skills and interests. Sean was elected as the group leader and project manager, and as the web designer and front-end developer for the project. I was the group's database manager and was in charge of designing and deploying the product's database. Ryan was the group's web developer and was in charge of developing and implementing the back-end technologies used for the product. Although we each primarily stuck to these roles, we all had input on every area. I will now pass back to Sean.
Thanks, Harley. I was tasked as being the group's project manager for this project. Our project began back on 30th July 2015 when we created our small group. From here, we were able to discuss in private how we wanted to go about the project. Within the first 2 weeks, I began work on our group Gantt chart using Microsoft Project. The task will be associated with specific persons in the group, with the initials of each member used to describe this. As you can see here, the project is broken up into smaller key sections. The sections that our project are being broken up to are based upon the set assessment tasks. Each of these sections has a milestone of the assessment submission date. The project schedule was submitted with the project plan report back on 21 August 2015. As you can see here, the project is separated into 7 main sections. These sections allowed the group to monitor how we were tracking and what tasks needed to begin. The initiation section of the schedule focused on the tasks that the group undertook before we began official work on the project. During this period, we were able to have our first meeting and register our team. The next section is the project plan. This revolved around our project plan report and the content that was in it. As you can see, the tasks are spread among each group member. I'll skip over the final report and come back to it soon. The fourth section is the learner report. This is a breakdown of each of the elements in the report that is required to be completed individually by each group member. Much like the learner report, the performance evaluation section includes tasks that are required to be completed individually. Another section that was added to the Gantt chart is the group meetings. This was to ensure that each member of the group knew when our meetings were and when to be available. Additional meetings have been added, however, since the submission in the project plan report. Another section that we added was the group unavailabilities. This section included dates and times when group members were unavailable to work on the project. Now on to the final report. As you can see, it is broken up into two subcategories, the web solution and the report. Let's have a look at the web solution. The duration for the web solution was a bit over 50 days. The web solution was broken up into 5 areas: research, design, development, testing, and implementation. Let's begin with research. When the research phase of the final project was created, we as a group had yet to discuss Flask or Bootstrap. Since then, however, the project plan has been updated to include this research. The research of each of these categories was not mandatory, as previous knowledge could be used. The initial research schedule was over a 3-day period in mid-August. However, it was completed over the lifespan of the project. The next section is design. In this phase, the group would produce wireframes for each of the pages of the website. I began this process by creating an account with My Balsamic to help with the production of these wireframes. The results of the designs are as follows. It needs to be stated that our wireframe layouts differ from our final project. This is because we were yet to discover Bootstrap. This didn't happen until the development phase. Next we move on to the database. Harley was tasked with creating this. As you can see here, this is the database layout that Harley created, which would later be developed in PHP-MyAdmin. Once we completed the design of our web solution, we were able to begin the development of the site. This was scheduled to start on August 29 and began with Ryan creating basic Flask templates for each of the pages. From here, I was able to use Bootstrap in order to create a template for each of the pages. We've had numerous design changes over the life of the project. Some of these designs were discarded due to better options becoming available. Early on in the development phase, I created templates for each of the proposed layouts and presented them to the group. The designing and coding of these templates and the final solution were completed locally without the use of Flask. This was so that I could tinker with the layouts and present my final version to the rest of the group without any errors. In the same time, Harley began work on the database. The database was a key area of the web solution. Harley nominated to complete this section as he wanted to get into database management once he graduates. Once the final layout was agreed upon by the group, Ryan and myself began work on the final web solution. I was in charge of the layout and the look of the website, while Ryan was focused on the back end with Flask. Much like Harley, Ryan and I chose areas to complete in conjunction with the areas of ICT we wanted to get into after university. As the project was being developed, each member of the group would gradually add content to the documentation. This documentation is to be provided with the final web solution for business managers to follow when creating their website. The process to have the web solution completed by the scheduled date was delayed, however. Instead of being completed by 16th of October, it was completed on the 21st of October. The reason for this delay is due to issues encountered with the development environment server, Git, and struggles with Flask and SQL Alchemy. Because of this, the time period to conduct full testing has been limited. We as a group have been doing some of the testing during the development phase to ensure that our code will hold up to the rigors it is required to. During the testing period, we were able to do a couple of dry runs through the solution with a fake business and a fake business manager. The final area of the web solution was the implementation. This phase involved ensuring that our web server was functional and that all key features were included. This was presented to Dr. David Lai on the 22nd of October. Overall, the group kept the project schedule fairly well. There were some instances where we went over time, but as a group we were able to rectify this with relative ease. I will now pass on to Ryan and Harley to give a demonstration of our web solution.